At what point do you gain the skills to be a photographer rather than relying on the camera to have all the skills to make you look like a photographer? What I mean by that, it kind of drives me crazy, and it's a quick rant, is these cameras are fantastic. The autofocus is great, but we want this camera to do everything for us. Like literally, oh, this isn't up to my standards in autofocus. In other words, your skills aren't up to the standards to use this. Like, why don't you gain some skills instead of relying on the camera to do it all for you? Then the autofocus will be perfect. I'm done with my rant. Okay, so there was a firmware update for a lot of the Fuji cameras, and the other cameras got that Reala Ace that this has. And then continuous autofocus, I think, was improved. I don't know. The autofocus on this is fantastic to me. It really is. If you pay attention, know what the hell you're doing, and learn how to use the camera, it's great. The other thing is, no, it's not up to Sony's or Canon's or blah. Who cares? Like, you gain some skill, and this will be a fantastic camera. I promise you. Get some skill. You know, the funny thing is all the skill that you want this camera to have is what's going to put you out of business anyway. Because there's new cameras that can do everything for you and that are perfect. Anybody can point in the right direction and push the button, and it works. So anyway, okay, I'm done, I swear. We're going to do a shoot today with this in continuous autofocus. We're going to use just LEDs because I want to test the high ISO on this thing too. Who cares? It's going to probably be around 2000 to 3500 or 3200. And we're going to keep this in continuous autofocus mode to see how that does. Just a fun shoot, just to play with the camera and see what it can do. Anyway, hope you stay around and watch the video. Thanks for watching as always. Now, these first couple of shots, I set the camera in aperture priority and let the camera pick the shutter speed and ISO because I just wanted a base point to say, okay, this is my base point at ISO 250 or ISO 125. This is the kind of images I'm going to get with this LED lighting and this kind of setup. Now, I can't shoot like this all the time because it's people, and this is 1/40th of a second. People move. You're going to get that motion blur, and it's going to look out of focus for some of us, but it's motion blur. Now, when I set the shutter speed to 500th of a second, I'm forcing it into higher ISOs, even in f2. The LED lights, I have one to start, and I added a second one to the left just to fill in some shadows, but I have it, really low. It did a nice job filling, and you'll see it when it comes on. You'll see that the difference in the images. But these images are coming out at in between ISO 1600 and 3200, and I like the look. Adding the f2 aperture onto this, it really does create a film type look. It's not grain. Grain comes from film. This is noise. And I want to make that distinction. We can call it grain or whatever you want, but it's still camera noise, sensor noise from the higher ISOs. I don't mind it. I think it has a nice look to it. Now, the lens at f2, it's not clinically sharp, but it's a sharp lens. It's a pleasingly sharp lens. Stop this lens down to f2.8, and it's a damn sharp lens. I noticed some people are saying, why wouldn't they update the lens at, if they're doing a 40 megapixel sensor? Yeah, they didn't need to, honestly. And I said it before, like if I'm reviewing a lens like from Voigtlander or Leica, and it has a softer rendering or glowish rendering at f1.2 or f1.4, we call it artistic or, whatever you want to call it. It's a plus. But now with this Fuji lens, it's soft. It's not soft. It does have a pleasing rendering. That's all I'm going to say. Stop it down at 2.8 if you want that clinically sharp kind of look. And it does a really good job with that as well. Now, going through these images and shooting at this high ISO, I use this camera all weekend or all week, as a matter of fact. And I went up to 800 ISO at night in the event space with a flash, and it did fantastic. I didn't look at one of the images and go, oh God, I don't like that noise. I honestly didn't. It just worked flawlessly. And I love the rendering of the images. They look beautiful. There is no issue with it whatsoever. It focused fine in the dark event spaces. I didn't have a problem with focus, but I put some kind of skill and take my time shooting rather than just spraying and praying. And that's a difference. I mean, if you want that kind of camera, you want the Sony, the Nikon, the Canon that you can just spray and pray with, and it doesn't take much talent to get things in focus. They're the ones to go with. But if you want this type camera, and it is a special camera, honestly, it just takes a little bit of skill and practice to use it and to get good with it. If you just take the time to build up your skill level, it will be a spectacular camera, and you will absolutely love the autofocus performance on it. It just worked great for me. With the new update, the firmware update, I can't tell you if it's better because I wasn't using the camera in continuous autofocus mode that much. And when I did use it, it just worked. So I can't tell you if it's faster, if it's more accurate, if it doesn't do this anymore or that anymore. I don't know because I'm using it today in this shoot and it works fine. Every shot, I think I had one shot out of focus, and that was definitely human error. So I'm sure it's not perfect, and I would never claim that, but it's really damn good. Period. It's just a good focusing, a good rendering camera. Now, yes, there's more noise on this camera than there would be a full frame or a medium format sensor. It's a smaller sensor, but it looks fine to me. It's just, would I give these images to the clients? Yes, I'm going to give these images to the clients because they look great to me. If you zoom in, maybe you will see a little bit more noise than you'd want to, but I kind of liked the way it rendered. Anyway, as I was going through, I stopped down a little bit. I took this down to 250th of a second to lower that ISO a little bit more. Yes, it's more pleasing. I would be happy with ISO 1600 on this camera as a clean image. 3200, it's pushing the noise a little bit, but not so bad that I wouldn't give it to a client, if that makes sense to you. Anyway, it was a fun shoot. It was a fun camera to shoot in the studio environment, especially with these two. They're just a blast. And the film simulation, again, I shot this in RAW, and the film simulation I added in Lightroom after, and I just did a batch paste kind of thing where every image got the film simulation, and this is it on a camera. So I was pleased with it. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the shoot. Oh, this is me. I'm going to try the burst mode. This is the very first time I ever used the burst mode on an X100 because I never used that. It did a really good job. Anyway, thanks for watching as always. Appreciate your time.